Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We are casting a game of Dominions 5. This is the Hydra game, and I am joined by Sy.
Hi, my name is Sy, and I like Dominions.
And we are on turn 10 of this game, and we have some messages. And also, as you can see, we have the first player versus player conflicts here. Battles actually taking place. So let's take a look here. Joman says, didn't expand so hot. Oh well. I have a feeling that we might be in for a Raga rush. He sent this
Well,
last turn.
he's certainly right.
Yeah. Hard to tell at the moment.
Yeah, it seems that Joman has a
Yeah.
much more optimistic outlook than I would in their position.
Sure.
Because when you've expanded to less than 15 provinces, you're already small. In Joman's case, he's at only 10, so he's significantly smaller than he should be. And none of the three neighbors that he borders are a particularly good matchup at this point. Even disregarding the Raga Rush, which we know is happening and which he seems to be expecting, he wouldn't be in a great position to start going because he didn't even have an additional fort under construction yet, nor does he have a way to take his underwater provinces. So he's not only not in a position to snowball. He's also not even in really a particularly great position to defend himself when he does get attacked.
Yeah. So he says he's pretty satisfied with the way the game has gone so far, but I think you could aim a bit higher in terms of like your expansion.
Yeah, and even if you were to be, this small,
Mhm.
if you did something like, an awake researcher or a dormant titan or something along those lines, where you have a really good eye to defending yourself, and you already have like a little bit of infrastructure under production, you can still be, with subpar expansion, but in a better position overall than Joman is now.
Well, he does have a dormant titan, right? But it
Right.
is.
It's
We thought the paths might not be fantastic for a first war.
Right, and because he took that specifically to go underwater
Hmm.
rather than to actually fight off a rush. So it's not really designed for the sort of defensive play which he's going to need to do in this situation.
Okay, so Raga, meanwhile, says that this turn we start the invasion of Joman, and they'll keep expanding with one party, and he's got Alquills being made.
I mean, if he told us that he was going to keep expanding with one party 2 turns ago, we would have had to believe him because he's not exactly been vigorous with his expansion either.
Here's a message from Midgard. So he has naps with all his neighbors except Patala. And he's going for Conjuration 5, so presumably for air elementals. And they are thinking about elfing Patala, it seems.
Yeah,
And yeah.
so if the Titan had been awake, I would actually think that Patala would be totally fine with that matchup because Dormant
Mhm.
Titans are actually quite good against elves if they don't already have great swords of sharpness online.
Mhm.
Given their research priorities of going construction 2 first, they definitely can field that, so they're not going to be particularly scared of that Titan when they do see it come out, but they are going to need to prepare for that. So if they just blithely send in an army ahead of just, a pile of those sacred cavalry and the Titan gets woken up, then they might be in for a surprise. As far as the actual troop matchup goes, or Midgard's Bless, I should say, because they focused on like the larger and plus attack,
Mhm.
that's not actually very effective against the Naga because they're going to have reduced density when they're fighting them. So that means that they're going to be receiving more of those hypnotize attacks.
I,
And the same harassment penalty applies to both the repel and defense. So while those Veneer are theoretically going to have, pretty solid repel stats, aside from geared thugs, the individual van cavalry isn't going to be particularly defensively strong against Nagas in particular. So armies of similar sacred counts, I think, are going to favor Patala. and that's not even going into things like Earth Meld and their other, defensive spells for shutting down those sacreds. So
Yeah,
I think,
I was
yeah,
gonna
no,
say I don't like I I don't love this matchup for Midgard with the Vans. Like I don't like elves into monkeys, right? Into Naga specifically, because the Naga is a great unit when you even if you don't have to match the elves right number for number, but because the hypnotize can just really knock a few out of commission, and then elves is lots of numbers and also archery, all of which are fantastic, are the things you want when you want to kill elves, right? Where you want to harass them down and where you just use archery. So,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, that Conjuration 5 Rush is also like, a very good target in general, and monkeys don't naturally have anything size 6 to block them. But what Patala is going to have is Body, Ethereal, and Luck, and both of those are really effective against the size 6 tramplers because they actually do help mitigate the damage quite a bit.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely think that out of the people that he neighbored, I can kind of see why he did it. I think that he could have fought birds just as well, but I say that mostly just based on the fact that the birds have focused so heavily on their infrastructure. So he actually would have been able to like take a decent amount of stuff. But I think that matchup could, like any of the matchups that Midgard is facing, could go either way in part just because their bless is a little bit awkward for these nations that they would be fighting. And Midgard's expansion was just poor, so they're just going to be a little bit behind on gold and infrastructure compared to any of these neighbors, all of whom actually expanded decently well.
Yeah. And another nation here that expanded well was Vidheim, who's happy with his progress so far. They took Misfortune, but apparently got pretty lucky. Actually, this is an important thing I as I read this to point out. So something that a lot of people don't realize is that the way that Misfortune and luck scales work is there's a distribution of luck of events in the game, and some are skewed, like they have conditions, right? Like this can happen if the scales are between Misfortune 1 and Luck 3 or whatever, right? There might be a upper and a lower bound, and some don't have boundaries. When you take either Luck or Misfortune, it increases the chance of random events in general, and it skews the distribution more towards unlucky events if you take Misfortune, and more towards lucky events if you take Luck. But it will give you more events in general, and some of those events, for example, if you take Misfortune 2, you're just going to have more events, and some of those events are going to be lucky events. Because just because you skewed the distribution a bit towards Misfortune doesn't mean you can't get lucky events. And similarly, if you take luck scales, you're going to get more random events, but you're also going to get more unlucky events because you're just getting more random events in general, although you skewed the distribution towards luck. So people often complain about, oh, I took Misfortune scales, or they don't complain. When they take Misfortune scales and get lucky events, they're like, haha, this is amazing. But when they take luck scales and get bad events, they complain. They say, this is a bullshit scale. Well, no, you took luck scales, so you just have more events in general, and that's going to include unlucky events. Not only that, but especially early on, your scales have to spread. So in the first year, most of the events that you're getting...
That's actually exactly what I was going to say.
Have nothing to do with your scales, because unless it's your cap, you probably don't have most of your scales being impactful there. So just two common misconceptions, right, about the luck scales. The first, maybe the most important, being the fact that in the first year, it probably has nothing to do with what you picked in your build, because unless it's happening in your cap, then there's very few of your scales having an impact there. But secondly, you're taking luck or misfortune.
I guess the one thing that I would say is, so the one thing that I would say is like and counter to that is that when you have luck 3, 80% of your events are going to be good. So it actually should make you have fewer bad events. in particular, so the number of events that you get is actually rolled. You can get up to 4, and the like the exact math about how many events you get and what it rolls against is on the wiki. But like in the very early game, you are going to have a fairly limited number of events, and luck actually is going to protect you essentially from bad events in provinces that do have your luck scale spread to them. So in particular, if you have luck scales, you're vastly less likely to have an unrest event on your capital. And in the early game, that can actually reduce your production and recruitment points by like enough that that's actually like a really significant hit to your expansion. So luck is actually in that sense like a defensive scale. And even in the late game, when you're getting more events, it should actually make you have significantly fewer bad events, even though it does increase the chance of events overall.
If you're taking luck 3 for sure.
Yeah. So that's sort of, I guess, the thing that I was saying, because you were saying like people would take luck 3 and then complain about getting lots of bad events, but in practice, yeah, you should complain about that sort of thing because you should be more protected against that, regardless of how many events you're getting in total. Because even if you're doing like order 3 neutral luck, once your empire is at like at a set size, then you're going to be rolling those 4 events just because you have enough provinces to trigger that.
Yeah. No, well, yeah. So luck 3 is definitely going to skew it much further, but if you have a build that only has, let's say, luck 1 or luck 2, or if your scales haven't fully spread to an area yet, and therefore in that province you only have luck 1 or luck 2. So you might have taken luck 3, but unless it's the late game, a good chunk of your empire doesn't actually have luck 3 scales.
Right. And then the other thing is that luck and misfortune scales both kind of compound on themselves. So, like, Misfortune 3 is significantly worse than Misfortune 2, which isn't that much worse than Misfortune 1, which isn't that much worse than Neutral. And along the same lines, Luck 3 is much better than Luck 2. So, if you're investing in luck scales at all, it's usually something that you want to push all the way to 3. And along the same lines, if you're dumping it, Misfortune 2 is very cheap compared to Misfortune 1.
Here, just as an example, let's take a look at Ulm here, right? So right now it's turn 10.
Yeah, Ulm scales are bad, but that's
right. But he
that's
has
not news.
Right. But he has luck 3, right? But
he has luck 1.
Oh, sorry, magic. I'm sorry. Well, actually, he does have luck 1, but actually, this is a good. Let's just look at the magic scale because I wanted to just show how the scales spread. I don't.
Oh yeah.
Find like somebody who has luck 3. Maybe Patala probably has luck 3. We could look at Patala, right?
Yeah, Patala has luck 3.
Yeah, okay. Patala has luck 3, right? So how many provinces do you have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 with the cap, right? So the cap has 3. His cap circle has 2, 3, 3.
It's mostly 3s, yeah.
Well, it's 3, but this one has none. This one has no luck scales. So that's 3 with no luck scales. This one has 2. No misfortune here because of neighbors. Neutral. 2, 3, 2. So half of his empire, now obviously it's the outer half, but still half of his empire has literally no luck scales. One even has misfortune. So
and Patal is actually going to be a little bit skewed because he has low dominion and an awake god. So his scales would have actually spread a lot faster.
Yeah.
Or rather, his candles would have propagated to provinces a lot faster.
If yeah, for sure. If his god had been up, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So he's actually going to have more luck scales than an ordinary build would at this phase of the game.
So actually, that's a good comparison here. Might be let's look at Bogarus, who has luck 3, right? So if we look, obviously at the outer ring here, no scales. Here there's 3. Here there's nothing. 2, 2, 1, nothing. 2, nothing. 2. Yeah, and he had like exarchs here preaching for like 2 turns, right? And it's still only 2, 2. And nothing, right? So even in Bogarus, who has a pretty scalesy build, you're at this point in the game, you still have barely half of your full like luck effect across your empire.
Bogarus is definitely a much better example of like a more normal.
Yeah, this is what
spread.
It would look like, right?
Yeah, so, just because he doesn't have that awake.
So, anyways, just something to keep in mind. Like in the early game. Your luck scales they're good for your capital, and they're going to start to spread to your cap circle. But before year 1, this is especially true because often you build a fort like 2 provinces away from your capital, right? Because you don't want to like block recruitment points or something like that. That province is almost certainly going to have none of your scales. And so, just because you took luck 3 in your capital is very unlikely to protect you from like a barbarian attack or something in that province where you're building your fort. Anyways, just keep that in mind, folks. So I think we should just look at the first actual war that's happening.
Sure.
Right
yeah, that
away.
Raga versus Joman thing.
Yeah, exactly. So Raga attacked. So he said he was going to expand with an army and then attack, but I actually see 2 attacks and nothing else, right?
I think he's talking about so he just finished more Zidans in his cap, so I think he's talking about sending out like another expansion party to take 156, 168, and 155.
So these guys were just fighting PD, but let's see how he has it scripted. So this is just a Sacred Commander. He's got some heavy cav in front, and then 6 Zidans. And looks like it's just blessing, and hold an attack rear. Okay. And the cav are probably... Oh, they're just on fire because they have composite bows. So let's see how that actually worked out when he was fighting Joman's army. This is a small army, but still. It looks like Joman had guys on attack rear.
That's his profit, so everyone should fly here.
Yeah. Oh. One guy stayed. Yeah. He didn't even get touched. All right, that's the Edens for you.
Yeah.
So let's take a look. He's got a big stack of Bakemono. Well, big, like a few Bakemonos. He's got samurai archers, samurai cavalry, and I guess the returning expansion party that had come this way.
He got a hero actually in his capital, which is one of the Gift of Water Breathing guys. So he might, even though Joman can just land on his capital, if he thinks he's not ready to patrol that off, he might just take a water province now with like samurai cavalry using that hero, just in order to have like another fort that Raga can't siege.
Okay, now Raga can target the capital next turn, right?
Should be able to, I think.
Now, if you're Raga, let's see. Yeah,
I think you use one of those parties to secure the retreat path to just go directly south, and then you use the one with the profit to just fly straight onto the cap.
So you'd go capital with this. And as Joman, would you, like, what do you feel you would need to patrol this out?
I think you need relevant magic. You need, like, Tangle Vines. Actually, I don't think Tangle Vines would be enough unless you have, like, 8 Shugenja out already, and I don't think that Joman does. Like, I straight up think that you... I think you test it. So, like, I think you see, like, does your PD don't matter? Like, and if so, like, you can, see if you can just put together enough of a throng of troops to win off numbers. And then you can roll it. Just put, like, troops in the back, some forward deployed commanders, so you can have something to essentially anchor your PD, and then have the troops that you want fighting the Griffins, which you see are set to hold an attack rear, set up in the back as sort of your trap, with your mages set to be, like, protected by them, so you can do the Tangle Vines. And then if that works, then absolutely patrol. I think you can sort of expect that to be happening here. If you lose that fight, I think that you take another turn to defend and take a water province.
So I think one of the issues, too, is that the Bakemono shows can't get to the capital next turn.
No. Yeah.
So,
and they're quite useful. It's a matter of what you value more. The other thing that I think that you do is you send that army that's over at your west up to the northeast, just to essentially capture that province. Because you can assume that the other thing that you can try doing is taking the province immediately to the west there, even though the Zidans are there now. There's a thing of, like, if you see a high-speed crash up ahead, then you can aim towards it because you know that whatever's crashing isn't going to be there by the time you get there. Terrible advice, by the way. Don't actually do that. But when you have like a raiding party like this, you know that that party is going to move. So you can expect it's either going to go to your capital or go south one. And in either case, it's not going to stay in that province.
Okay.
So,
yeah. Yeah. All right.
That's that. If you look at that forest province that the small group of Zidans is in further north, that's actually, I think, what Raga was talking about. That's his other expansion party. No, in
I see.
149.
Yeah, maybe because this was negotiated with Bogarus. Okay.
I think so. Bogarus, when he'd said that they'd negotiated borders, had said that he was getting 137 and Raga was getting 163 and 157. It seems that that's changed.
Oh, I thought it was the other way around. In my mind, Bogarus always had this one, and Raga had these two. Maybe I'm misremembering. That was my recollection. Was that Bogarus had this one, and Raga had.
I might be the one that's off then. Yeah.
Okay. So that's the situation. We're gonna have to see if Joman can kill any Zeadans as they attack. Meanwhile, well, I guess that's the only major player fight here. Let's go back and just do see if there were any exciting expansion battles.
The other conflict which we know is coming is Atlantis and Bogarus.
That's true. We can look at how the forces are deployed here.
Yeah, the answer is they're kind of not as far as Atlantis goes. Bogarus is ready to attack 174 and 154. So I expect we see that happen next turn.
I think so, because I remember last turn we got a message from Bogarus saying he was going to like wait one turn and attack at the same time as Tianqi. And it looks like Tianqi is ready to attack also. He's got one army here that would probably head north, and this army here, which also probably heads north. So it looks like next turn this conflict might actually start.
And it looks like Atlantis is not doing anything to defend against that. Like you can see he's got his Wyrm set to take 131, and he has his expansion party set to take 162, most likely. It could, be going to 177 or something. But in any case, he's not putting anything on the front with Bogarus, or even TNG for that matter, because those Mournfuls were withdrawing. Yeah.
There's a fort under construction here in 129. That's questionable, because taking, like, it's as if Atlantis is playing as if he doesn't think that this would cause Tianqi to attack him, right?
I think he's playing as though Tianqi's not a player,
right? Like it's an AI, but the AI would attack you if you like.
I think the AI just judges based on relative army size and province defense and stuff.
Yeah.
So, like, the AI doesn't really care how close you are to its capital, I don't think. Like, you can go into the AI's cap circle. I'm pretty sure.
I mean, look, unless he's...
It's been a while since I've done single player.
Yeah, unless he's planning to move the Wyrm here. I guess it's weird, but it's compounding the fact that he's building a fort here, and there's barely anything to defend on this border that he's pushed aggressively is kind of suggests that he's like not understanding the thought process of his neighbor, and simultaneously, either because he has no scouting or whatever other reason, he seems completely unaware of what Bogarus is doing. Now, I don't know diplomatically if he's worked anything out with Arco, or if he knows what's going on with Falegra, but in general, at this point in the game, you have to kind of know what's going on with your four neighbors, and you either know there's going to be peace or war, right? So
yeah, you also don't need scouting to see that Bogarus is sitting there with a pile of dudes, because that pile of dudes had already been there, and he knew that. So
yeah, exactly. So, anyways, this doesn't look like it's going to go well in the first turn of this conflict.
Yeah, and the other thing is that he can't really rely on Diplo with Arco. because both Arco and Nissateris will break a nap if they think that they can like get more value out of doing that.
Yeah, well, but also, like, if these two players are attacking him, then any player in this position, like, if you don't have a nap already, like, I guess what I'm saying is by now it's too late, right? If this turn,
Yeah.
suppose Atlantis called up Arco and said, "Hey, do you want a nap?" What's Arco gonna do? He's gonna go talk to Tianchi and Bogarus and Falegra and say, like, "What's up?" Right? And he's gonna figure out pretty quickly, unless these guys both flat out lie and collude to lie together, right? They're He's got to figure out real quick that he's about to get attacked, so he'll never sign a nap because he could just get in on the fun. So it's kind of too late. Anyways, we'll see next turn how that pans out. So let's look at nothing really else is happening here for Tianchi. I don't think the Pretender is online. No. Any forts under construction? No.
He should fort 54 unless he expects to be attacked by Arco. Like 54 is probably the position you need to get a fort up because that's your deployment zone for fighting Arco, and also it defends the throne on 61. Or it vies for that throne, rather.
Yeah. But we don't know the Diplo status between these two. Or maybe we do, but I don't remember it at this point. So sorry, that's a false statement. Maybe they did agree to a nap, and I'm just forgetting.
Yeah, even if you don't have any assurances from Arco, if you think that you can get a fort up on Kalim's border, 80 is an okay alternative since that also borders the throne. But yeah, like 80 or 54 are probably where you want it. 70 would also be okay. But since that's a waste, it's going to be high sites. You want to search it first. I basically see how valuable that province actually is for you before you invest in putting up like the fort somewhere where you're not sure how many troops you're actually going to be able to recruit there.
Yeah. Okay. Bogarus, who clears this province just with heavy cav, and we know there was a fort under construction here. We see a fort under construction here. So it's 2 forts under construction. That's it. All right.
Yeah, he really should start a fort on 179 just because he has the free infrastructure there, and it's actually a good location. And we also know he has a nap, so it's like 3 good reasons to all have a fort there.
Yeah. Looks like he went for this one first, maybe just because it has even higher population. But I'm sure he'll fort this sooner rather than later. Okay. The other future belligerents is Midgard implied that his first war target might be Batala. Now he has finished all the expansion that he can do. Technically, actually, we can take a look at this. No, he's gonna take this next turn, but he lost. Well, he just lost the Huskarls, I guess, to the heavy cap charge. Let's just take a look.
Yeah, it looks like he's using them as his lance bait.
Yeah.
Just fine.
Yeah, that's all that happened. Okay. So he's finished kind of here.
Yeah, so the thing I want to, I guess, talk about is as far as like Van's war with Batala goes, because it makes such a big difference whether or not you have Conjuration 5 and casters for it, it might be worth not just like attacking right away, but instead starting to seed elves into Patala's territory, and then actually attack with a combination of conventional forces and your sneaky guys. So basically have enough sacreds to beat capital PD, because odds are good that Patala doesn't patrol. And then you seed, like, let's say 3 or 4 even raiding parties, because he should have the numbers by now, because I don't think he lost any Van Herses or anything. So you basically like start seeding stuff into Patala's territory so you can siege his cap and take enough territories to lead into that, and then do that at the same turn that you move your conventional army onto Patala's border. So like as you move from 30 to 22, that's when you like launch your attack, and then you move into 26 with your conventional army with air elementals and so on, and then you can then reinforce with Vanyars wherever you actually need to, and that should give you enough of an edge that even in like an unfavorable fight, you'll basically have you'll be fighting over Patala's provinces instead of your own. And
Yeah.
then at the same time, that also limits both how many Nagas he has and where those Nagas can be deployed. So you can actually take on an unfavorable matchup just by bringing more resources to any given point than Patal is going to have. Because Patal's armies are still going to be somewhat scattered from expansion, unless Patala comes to the conclusion independently that he also wants to go fight in Midgard, in which case his troops are actually going to be in position coincidentally.
Right.
But aside from that scenario, I think he's in good shape to actually be able to take advantage of an elfing.
Yeah. I mean, Patala does have some armies in his west, but they're not. They don't all need to converge here. So just because of geography, he is going to bring these armies further east because presumably he wants to take this. He also has a fort under construction here near his cap. So since his expansion is done, there's nothing else to do with this army. So this will probably be protected and is unlikely to get cancelled by elfing. Midgard does not have a fort under construction. So another issue here is certainly, I mean, elves are nice, but in terms of the ability to recruit troops, Patala, with the force recruitment that he can do, and the Bakamana shows that he has access to, and potentially a second fort, is just going to be able to pump out more dudes.
Oh, for sure.
Generally speaking. So that's why that initial alpha strike from the elfing is going to be so critical.
Yeah, and then the other thing that is that Midgard's troops have very high recruitment point costs. So if you actually do want to like mass a decent conventional army, you kind of need both resources and rec points to get those Einhirs out. And the only decent province that Midgard is going to have with like both a high base resource value and a decent population is 12. Everything else is either low resource, which is actually a problem given that he's taken Sloth 2, or low base recruitment point. So you basically only have one good fort point.
Okay, so that's this area. Did Calum do anything? He got...
He got both mist-covered highland provinces this turn.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That's something I wanted to take a quick look at was sites, but we can do that quickly after. Let's just check all the fights. Looks like the Shamblers finally met their end, trying to take out cavemen. They failed, but they did kill the caveman champion, which means he could just take this with like a scout or something next turn. I guess the darkness was too much.
And he does have an Orphic Mystic in 23, so I assume he sends that to clear the cave.
Could be. Oh, they just morale checked.
Did the leader die? Is that what got him?
But also, when did this guy die? Right? Like, why did the cavemen not rout? That's weird. Are the cavemen berserkers?
No. Now, the only reason that they don't rout after the champion died is presumably that the Shamblers are already routing. Yeah, so the Shambler leader dies first.
But just barely.
Yeah.
Huh. That's a close...
Might have even been the same round, but either way,
yeah.
That's why they didn't run.
Okay, he clears this with Mystics, and this too.
Oh, he lost one of his priestesses.
Yeah.
I'm guessing she just gets shot. Oh, nope, this is melee guys. They probably just walked around. Yeah.
Oh. That's unfortunate. Didn't quite catch the heavy cav. Okay. That was Arco. Vedi still doing Vedi things here. Nothing too fancy going on. Falegra. Jeez, this is an epic province. 25 heavy cav.
And 29 crossbows too, so you can't
Yeah.
even really effectively just loop around and kill the command squad.
Yeah. He still
He
has
is
the crossbow.
Yeah, but the problem with the way that he's using those crossbow mercenaries is that he's not. He's keeping them in the back. Yeah, so he's not using them to screen for his real troops. He's protecting them instead, which is
And honestly, he got kind of lucky there. Like the indie heavy cav squad kind of routed, but it had already killed all of the Muflon cataphracts.
Yeah, so those heavy crossbows are actually pretty decent against enemy crossbow fire.
Yes.
So you usually want them like further up.
For sure.
And then you also, if you're having them set to fire archers, you can trigger an HP route a lot more easily. But Flager's position is so bad at this point, just based on like not just his initial losses, which slowed down his expansion, but just the number of troop losses that he have means that he's essentially
losing
helpless.
His heavy calves, all of them, every expansion.
Yeah, Flager at this point is essentially helpless.
Anything noteworthy in terms of Ulm expansion? Here he was kind of in a dead end, so he had to move back. Looks like he is going to go for this big heavy cav province.
Think he's got enough crossbows?
Yeah, I think he's got that covered.
I think he seriously needs a front line.
Mm-hmm.
Just put some shields, like buy some indie heavy infantry or something.
Yeah. Okay. I wanted to take a quick look at sites to see if there's anything. I wish there was a.
You can check the gem income thing.
Yeah, that's actually a good way to look at that. Let's go look at gem. Actually, we haven't looked at score graphs really. After 10 turns, I think it's reasonable to take a look. Looking at provinces, we have Arco and Atlantis in the lead.
And those are both with Awakes. So Atlantis with the Awake Researcher to do buff expansion. And then, of course, also the Shipwreckers. That's why they're in the lead. And then Atlantis, along the same lines, they had their Awake Worm.
Their Awake Worm. And then we have Kalem and Patala doing well.
Patala, interestingly, also did have an Awake, but they lost theirs.
But they lost it.
Yeah, and Kalem's expansion is good just because it's Kalem. So another
Patala benefiting from being neighbors to both Joman, who struggled, and also, I believe, Falegra, right, to his west.
Right.
And then we have Bogarus and Vedheim doing fine. And then Ulm, Raga, Tianchi, and
Midgard is, I think, the same as Raga, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of blend together.
Yeah, they both blend together. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I guess to me the most surprising thing here is Patala, but again, they're just getting expansion because Joman and Falegra and honestly Midgard didn't do so well. So they're just like continuing. See, this line has kept going up, which is not normal. Everybody else's expansion is petering out as you run out of provinces to grow to. But Patala still has a lot to grow to. And we're kind of expecting Atlantis to be on the defensive, so this is going to dip down probably.
Patala's expansion is honestly fine. Like as a nation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all nations can expand, right? But some definitely struggle more than others. I think the Patala between elephants and in this case an awake god is actually fine.
Mm-hmm.
If you go too far into elephants, you just kind of spend too much money on your expansion parties. But he only spent I think 100, 200 gold-ish on those elephants, and otherwise used the heavy bandars. So he's fine on that front. But just in general, I don't think the Patala really struggles to expand.
So it looks like Kalem just got the two miscovered provinces, so that's part of the gem income here.
He also found one other site.
Mm-hmm.
It's another air gem site. So he's actually sitting pretty if he wants to do an air elemental focused first war.
Yeah,
Or
for sure.
actually, yeah, Sky Split Oak could actually be an event thing. But since there's a Hyrule Elder in that province, I assume he found it.
Okay. I think we covered everybody. We covered everything. All the battles. People are pinging thrones. And we're expecting more fights next turn. I think that's a wrap for this turn. Anything that you can think of that we missed here?
Nothing that we missed, but just speculation.
Mm-hmm.
Based on where troops are, it's theoretically possible for Batala and Vadihheim to start fighting. I don't actually expect that to happen,
Mm-hmm.
but just based on where their actual armies are, Patala could decide that, oh, I'm just going to go rush this guy. Maybe if
Mm-hmm.
his god was awake, he might think of doing something like that, but without, probably not.
Yeah, this might just be the end of expansion. Doesn't necessarily have to be threatening.
No,
Um,
not at all. I assume that they're
mhm.
going up into 38 next turn. I'm just saying theoretically they could.
Yeah, they could. They could. All right. So I think going forward, well, first of all, there's almost no more indie provinces left. So we're going to obviously focus a lot more on the player versus player conflicts. So yeah, so we've got like one theater of war, which is going to be Raga and Jomon. We've got the Atlantis versus Bogarus and Tianchi, and looks like at some point, maybe in the future, Midgard and Patala. It looks like the three wars that we might have, so we'll keep an eye out for that. And of course, we'll keep an eye on the other nations, see if they're building forts and throne battles and things like that. So that is going to be it for this episode, and we'll see you guys next turn. Take care.